Happy Patch Tuesday, everybody. We've done it again. We're here. We've survived. It's patch forward. If any of you all are in the daylight savings time era of your year here, I like to celebrate privately. We've got some juicy CVEs this month, and we're really excited to just sit down and talk about them personally. I'm here joined as usual by Henry and Seth, who are just very regulars on our podcast here.
I try.
Yeah. So I'll just jump right into it. We've got a bunch of Chromium-based vulnerabilities around Edge, Chromium in general. So definitely make sure you're getting your browsers updated this week. Orgs that leverage patching software and update servers will probably have an easier time jumping on this one, or these like 8. But for those who don't, I would say if you can't get a patching software, if you can't get like a Windows update server, have a browser standard that you can easily like patch, or not patch, but get updated on individual devices. Some of the bigger ones in this have like use after free vulnerabilities in profiles. So, that right there just kind of lets attackers escape the sandbox of the browser in general and exploit those vulnerabilities to like exfil data, stuff like that. Honestly, just since identity is so key in this day and age, I'm always like more worried about like the spoofing vulnerabilities, because they really easily trick users to get around like different like technical defenses, like your EDRs, and so it kind of just looks like normal behavior, and they've just got the identity of that user that accidentally clicked some kind of a UI element in the browser. So those ones always kind of like stick out to me when it comes to a browser vulnerability. Well, Henry, Seth, anything on that one, or is it pretty standard?
I'm curious, Ryan, for your opinion on storing passwords in the browser.
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. At this point, I don't understand why people don't invest more in a password manager. And also, not just any password manager. Do the research, understand the infrastructure that carries those keys across, between like each manager. Like if you're doing a cloud-based one, if you have an on-prem one, definitely make sure you have good controls in place. But I don't like browser password storage because it's so easy to just dump them if somebody gets admin control over the computer itself. Any kind of like escaping the sandbox situation. I don't know. It freaks me out. I haven't used browser password storages in probably like a decade at this point. So, yeah.
Good call.
Yeah, it's my opinion. My opinion. It might be a hot take, might not be, but I think it's the right take.
Typical manager over here.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, is what it is. And speaking of manager, Seth, you've got a management console one.
Yeah. This one's pretty interesting. As this has been exploited in the wild. So this is CVE 2025-26-633, and this is a Microsoft Management Console remote code execution vulnerability. From here on out, I'm just going to say MMC. So the summary for this one is improper neutralization of Microsoft Management Console. Again, MMC allows an unauthorized attacker to execute code over a network. Sounds juicy. So that being said, what is MMC? MMC is a Windows tool that lets users manage and monitor their computer's hardware, software, and network. So this is baked into pretty much all versions of Windows 10, 11, all the various server versions. So it is everywhere. So what this can do, you can, create and save administrative tools called consoles, and it accesses other tools like device manager, performance monitor, and event viewer. So it has access to a lot. So with this one, for the attack execution, it's going to look something like an attacker is going to have to convince a user to open a file. So now we're getting back into phishing territory, where they have attachments or links to like fake websites that is hosting like a malicious MMC file. I think that's the .msc extension. You can get into USB drops for some of the bigger targets in the enterprise. And so with that file, the attacker is going to have to create a malicious .msc file for somebody to open. And that file will exploit the vulnerability in MMC, triggering the RCE. And then at that point, you have a payload embedded, and the file can execute arbitrary commands or download additional malware, create a backdoor, things like that. So, again, with this one, user does have to download and open the file. So once the file is open, the attacker could gain control over the system in a few different ways. It can be something like executing a PowerShell script to install malware, or creating a reverse shell. Things like, what else would we have? They could potentially deploy ransomware. And again, I mentioned injecting a backdoor, so then they have that persistent access for future attacks. So those are kind of some of the things that that they can do with that specific file. And then at that point, once they're in, if it is a standard user, the attacker could attempt privilege escalation, or privesc, to gain admin access. If the victim is already an admin, you're in trouble, because at that point they have control over all group policy settings. They could be disabling security tools, easily move laterally across the network. So, obviously this is a pretty big deal. And then if you want to move on to like business impact, you can have easily data exfiltration. They could start rebooting servers, so you're kind of like in a system disruption state. And then you have persistence that I mentioned earlier, where they can be installing rootkits to maintain backdoor access. Again, ransomware deployment, and in some cases you can get into the compliance violations and fines depending on if a data breach occurs. Organizations can then face regulatory penalties. So, this one can be bad news all around. The other thing, that the attack is also dangerous, because like it does exploit potentially human weakness, as it only requires one user to download this file. So, again, with a blast phishing campaign across the company, you're going to have success with at least getting somebody to click on something if your security training isn't up to par, right? So, and then that would bypass a lot of your traditional security, depending on how that file is crafted, because it could be considered a 0-day. And if like heuristics isn't picking that up, then it bypasses your endpoint protection. So, things like for mitigation, obviously security patches, keep things patched. You could limit the MMC usage. So if, you're an admin and you don't want your users messing with that, make sure that you're running, you don't have local admin accounts across your systems that would, then not allow them to even open those files. And then keeping your endpoint protection up to date, more awareness training. Like I said before, make sure you're staying up to date with your training and making sure people aren't clicking what they want to. I know it's boring, but it is important. So that's about it for mine. I think this one is a pretty big deal, given everything that I've said so far. It's this one could be deadly.
Yeah, I agree. Like, again, like that's like the kind of thing like in security where I always say like culture is such a big part of like staying on top of these vulnerabilities. Like just having like that open door policy with your security team and making it like okay to like talk about these things, like getting your users to like actually engage with you so that they kind of like develop that kinship where they can, you know, come to you if something odd comes up. Like they're not just like sitting there like trashing like a spam email or something like that. That's just kind of odd. I think we do that really well here, and I'm always so grateful for like the fact that a lot of our end users, if they see something odd, they will like send it to us like immediately and say, "Hey, you might want to like tell other people about this oddity." And I think that coupled with the training and everything, just kind of will help you keep on point and keep locked down from this one. So yeah.
Yeah, the MMC, yes. The MMC one in particular, I'm trying to think of like attack vectors, and I could totally see, maybe someone like posing either as someone from the IT department, like to another sysadmin or something like that, and be like, hey, here's my, use this MMC when you're doing, XYZ on this system. Like it'll help you with whatever, and just kind of trick someone unsuspecting into executing that, and then boom, remote code
Yeah.
execution. So
Yeah.
that could be nasty.
Yes.
Yeah. You get that like perfect person. Like I think of things like the MGM Grand, like where like they got ransomware and everything like that from like an admin user, just like being tricked into helping them get in. Like same vector, so to speak, for this one. And an equal amount of devastation.
Yeah.
So yeah, Henry, you want to bring us home with yours?
Oh gosh. So it seems that the theme of this month is file system vulnerabilities. Oh my. In particular, don't trust VHD files from untrustworthy locations. That's probably the theme of this one. Because I've got about 5 vulnerabilities this month that are all triggered by mounting a crafted VHD. One in particular, CVE 2025-24993, which is a Windows NTFS remote code execution vulnerability. A summary on that one is just a heap-based buffer overflow in Windows NTFS that allows someone to execute code locally. So with this one, kind of like with a previous vulnerability we just talked about, an attacker could trick a local user on a vulnerable system into mounting a specially crafted VHD that would trigger the vulnerability. And this one is also actively being exploited. So my advice is obviously to patch, but also, as I said earlier, don't trust VHDs from untrustworthy locations. And I'm just thinking back, from my time, working in IT. I think there's been several times where I have downloaded a VHD, usually with like a certain application or applications pre-built into them. And I just kind of mounted them and ran them. And honestly, especially early in my career, I never would have imagined that being used as an attack vector. And actually, to segue a little bit, Ryan, weren't you saying that you've actually seen something like this before?
Yeah. So, and I'm not gonna like. So I consulted a few years back, like when Windows 10 was like just kind of coming out, and I won't say where, I won't say which one, but like, just like with like a lot of different iterations of operating systems, there's always the want to like de-bloat like what it comes with, like what some of these OSs come pre-installed with. And so I remember someone on the IT team being like, "I've got this great VHC
Oh
file
no.
that we can push out to the workstations and everything like that at this law firm." And I remember them mounting it. Well, all these computers are spinning up to like max CPU, like first like night that they like re-image the whole place. And I remember being there at like midnight wondering like what the heck is going on. And the first thing I thought was, okay, like either like there's like a crypto miner like on like the host system or something like that. But what actually was going on was this de-bloated VHT that we pushed out, not me personally pushed out, but this IT person pushed out, maybe it was you, Henry, but I don't think so because I just met you here. Had a coin miner on it, and so this person was like, "I did the work. I got like the cleanest version of Windows 10 you can push out to your staff. Don't mind the Bitcoin miner that I also plugged on it to, get some cash for my work. It was a nightmare scenario, and it took that team I think 3 days straight of work to clean that mess up, and it was not a great time.
Gotta respect the side hustle.
Yeah, you do. You really do. But we're not promoting that here. We're promoting patching.
Yes. But yeah, beyond that one, there's, like I said before, a few more CVEs. All of those are triggered by mounting a specially crafted VHD. So if you're going to do anything this month, just be very careful about where you're downloading VHDs from.
Yeah, maybe build your own golden images. Maybe invest in secure base images. Even though those get pretty costly pretty quick.
Yeah.
Better off building your own. So, well, cool. I think that about does it for us. This month. I almost said this week, but no. But Seth, Henry, thank you as always for being here, and everybody else who listens, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Will see you. Yep. See you next month.
See ya. Ba-dum dum 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 dum.
Dun, 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 dun.